I am Ghassan Al-Dosari, the AAC-AGS President. On behalf of the AGS Board, I would like to welcome you all to our 6th technical webinar of this cycle. I would like to request all professionals and top management to sponsor their professional employees to join our forthcoming AACE certification courses. Today's technical webinar will focus on managing risks and challenges in mega projects. And the speaker is Dr. Nael Zabel, is currently working as a senior risk management in Neom. Previously, he worked as a PMO director, and he is an approved WorleyParsons risk facilitator, designated as a high experience level for MENA, Middle East, North Africa, and India. He holds a PhD in construction management and risk management and is RMP certified. He received an award of the winning Risk Implementation IRM Award for the public sector in 2021. Dr. Zabel has contributed to several influential conferences organized by the United Nations for implementation of the Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction 2015 to 2030 Roadmap in Geneva, Switzerland in 2016. Once again, thank you for joining us, and I hope this webinar will be beneficial to you and your experience. Back to you, Mr. Nael.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ghassan Al-Dosari, President of AAC Arabian Gulf Section. So may I welcome Dr. Nael Zabel to present to us our technical webinar topic. Dr. Nabil, you can proceed.
Very much. There is some delay, and unfortunately, I have maybe some noise in backyard. Not during, of course, there is something like a wedding festival, but they stop now during Azan al-Isha. So that in case of you hearing some songs or something like that, it is not from my side.
No worries.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you very much for AACE for this opportunity to meet this gentlemen and to deliver for them some, from my point of view, very important message regarding to risk management implementation, especially in construction industry and also for mega projects. I can tell you one of our challenges, not only to implement the risk management, one of the most challenges to convince our stakeholders about how much it is very important to implement and practice risk management in the construction industry. And also I remember during one interview for very big position as PMO risk manager for one of the ministries, the client told me that, Nael, already I have reviewed your CV and LinkedIn profile, and I know that you are very capable in risk management. But I will ask you only one question. Is you convince me by your answering, in this case, this job for you? What this question? He told me how you can convince the people who are working in construction industry that it is mandatory to implement the risk management. In case of they have been convinced by your answer, of course, they will accept to start to implement. And alhamdulillah, it's look like I have convinced him. So it was my strategy to convince our stakeholders, especially in construction industry, about how much the importance to implement the risk management. One of these tools, it is really this picture. Why? Because as we see in the middle of the picture, this is the project itself, and all maybe 100% from all projects, it's the project managers, he feels like he has delay, he has to work more and more to achieve his project on time and so on. So that all time, he has no time to answer to thinking, he's just trying to construct his project with his team, full concentrations on his daily activities, concrete pouring, steel, blah, 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 everything like that. But he doesn't know even his performance and his team is excellent regarding to achieving their activities, but a lot of stakeholders and a lot of external conditions out of his vision, if he concentrated only in his project, that may be affecting and causing a big failure for his project. For example, the laws which becoming day by day, or not, of course, day by day, but in dynamic way, updating by the governmental authorities regarding to environment, regarding to Ministry of Health, regarding to Ministry of Economic, and so on. Also, banking, changing material, supply chains, everything, so that his project under very dynamic environment, so that he has to have some specialist people like risk specialists or risk managers. They can analyze all of this component of the external environment or the external layer of the project, and also inside the internal layer of the project, in order to conclude the most important point that he has to concentrate. This is one of the main reasons why we have to implement risk management, especially in mega project and also in the construction industry. And when I am talking about construction industry, I'm talking about that because it is very complicated, but also there is a lot of industries very complicated and sensitive, like the medicine industry, nuclear, communication, something like that. But due to my experience in construction industry, so that I am giving all example about this industry. Second point, regarding to the project, any project, as we know, it is started like idea, like initiative, like if is it a private project, you thinking and you say, okay, I would like to invest some money so that maybe I would like to build a big hospital. So that it is right now like idea or initiative. The information about this hospital is still nothing, still zero. Or you say, I will build a mall or a hotel or something like that. Even you are a government, so that you thinking too, because based on some needs regarding to maybe Ministry of Health requirements and so on, so that you would like to building some hospitals or medical centers or so on. It is also coming as initiatives and started to study this as a feasibility studies and business cases and so on, till we finalize the developed concept and detailed design and construction and everything. Then we finish the project at the end stage of the project. If we go back for the initiation stage, what we can see the level of confidence about the actual information of the project is very low. Actually, it is starting from zero, because at that time you don't know how many floors, maybe even you don't know the location itself you will construct your project. Time by time, the level of confidence increasing, because the details of the projects become increasing. But unfortunately, the level of economical effective decision that decrease, because you already spent a lot time or much time regarding to something may be wrong or something like that, so that we cannot stay till the end of the project to take a correct action, because at the end of the project already the effective or economical effective of our decision, it will be coming to zero. So that as much as we can take appropriate decision in early stage for the project, that increasing and maximizing the efficiency of or economical efficiency for your decisions. If you are believe in these 2 points, of course, you will believe we have to implement and practice risk management for our projects. Actually, any planner, and yani, mashallah, your associations, of course, have a lot of members coming from planning background, and they are very expert in this field. Of course, all of them, when they planning for any project, they put the start point and end point, and they plan for straightforward. Like we will do this step and second step, third step, fourth step, then we will achieve the project. Actually, in the life, there is a lot of parameters that trying to make a deviation for this straight line. And we know that there is some project cannot reach their objectives and may be coming for something else. The risk management cannot eliminate all this deviation, but it will try to minimize as much as possible based on how much the effort and transparency will be added in this branch of management to minimize that deviation only, so that it will be like achieve the journey as less losses as much as we can. So that's why we need to make risk management implementation, because the records shows that there is a lot of number of the projects and the program and maybe portfolios have been filled, but regarding two reasons, it's not related to the performance or technical people or something like that. No, it's something else which coming from risk. So that it is mandatory to managing the risk to that, and it will be enhancing the project to achieve its objectives. Of course, via risk identification, mitigation, and so on. Also, we would like to say very important message, because some leadership or some leaders, they expected more and more than what we can provide. We're saying we cannot eliminate the risks, because there is fact, of course, we believe in this, there is no free risk project. Impossible to find any project or any task with zero risk, impossible. It is part of our life. So that we cannot eliminate the risk, but what we can do, we can manage the risk to maximize the opportunities and to minimize the threats. So that in this stage, let me tell you what is the meaning of risk. Here, I will not provide you the definition of risk, because I believe a lot of our attendees, maybe they keeping the definition better than myself. But here, the most important point is to know, look like the physical meaning of the risk. The risk is a potential event, so that it is right now not yet happening, but maybe happen. So that in case of the probability of that event equal 0, we call this, it is impossible event. So that it is not risk, because that will not happen. The probability equals 0. Okay. And in case of the probability of that event equal 100%, so that it is fact. Even if it is a future event, but if we sure 100% that will be happen, like after few hours, inshallah, the sun will be coming. So it is 100% inshallah, if we have life, that event will come. So it is not risk, but it is future events. Our scope of work regarding to risk management, which any potential event that probability not equal 0 and not equal 100%, something in between. Another point, right now, okay, this is risk, but not right now we can consider this is a risk for our scope of work, because it has this event, which is a potential event, has to have positive consequences or negative consequences regarding to our scope of work. Like, for example, today evening, we have a football game. Regardless the results, of course, that will not affect, for example, if we have a construction project. So that it is very important, but for a football player and so on. But of course, this is not risk or opportunity regarding to our project. So that in very simple way, we can say the risk is potential event that may cause positive or negative impact on our scope of work or or in our project. Again, the risk, it is not problem. And we use another terminology for the problems in the risk management, which we call the issue. So that the risk right now, not yet issue, but we have to proactive to eliminate those issues or decrease as much as we can those negative issues. And on another hand, we have to increase the probability of the opportunities. Actually, in practical way, theoretically, we're saying the risk is divided to opportunity, which positive, and threats, which negative. But in practical way, when we have threats, we telling them directly it is a risk. And if we have opportunity, we not say it is risk from the type of opportunity. Directly, we say opportunity. So that the two words which we use, risk, it's meaning threat risk, and opportunity, which meaning risk, but from the type of the opportunity. Risk statement. In PMI, there is a meta language for the risk description, which consists of 3 parts: cause, event itself, and consequences. And the meta language in PMI, it is the these 3 sections, and they started by cause, then the event, which is the risk itself, after that the consequences. But as mentioned from my colleague during the construction, I was approved a risk facilitator for all Middle East, North Africa, and India in WorleyParsons during 2013 up 2018. And based on the best practice, we change this structure to start by event itself, because the event itself, it is the risk itself. And we put some keywords between, as a separator between each phrase, so that we have this example, the highlighted keywords, it is which we added to the sentence. Why? To be as a separator, so that anyone inside the project will understand where is the risk itself, which is a potential event, and where is the cause, and where is the consequences. And this is very important, because many times we cannot determine the causes. For example, the earthquake. The earthquake, it is risk, because we're not sure if it will happen or no. And we cannot, as construction people, we cannot determine the causes of the earthquake. We don't have any reason in our hand. So that in this case, we say potential earthquakes that resulting in damage, blah, blah, blah. And we will not due to. So that the complete sentence is potential, and put the potential event like this: potential substantial changes to agreed project. You know, if you don't put, and the word of potential, it is coming from myself, during the courses and so on, WorleyParsons was using due to put it before the cause and resulting in before the result. But I said to them, we have to add potential before the event itself. Some people say, why? Because it is already in your risk register, so that anyone, any professional one will read this sentence, he will understand this is not yet happened, because it is risk, it is future event. But the practical way, when we dealing with subcontractors, suppliers, everything, when I telling him, for example, material delay or cash shortage, no, I don't have this issue. Why you telling me I have issue regarding to the delay, and consuming much time to convince them this is a risk and it's still potential and so on. So that it was like a magic word when we say potential substantial changes, it's meaning these changes not yet occurred right now. But because the scope creep, we expected some substantial changes. After that, of course, we can identify the key treatment action regarding to this risk. Right. Let us agree together to be also in a practical way. Of course, our project managers who are working and leading big projects, they practicing a risk management, but maybe they don't practice it in a formal way or documented way or something like that. So that some leaders, they look for us as a risk managers Why I need you? I already knows what may be happen, and I am taking actions directly and so on. Look, for this picture, we can say there is a diversity of the risk, and this is the risk specialist who is doing this, and of course, based on grouping exercises and so on. There is differences between each risk. For example, in the first picture, the risk is very high impact, but very low probability. And we have another risk with low impact and high probability. But we have risk which with very high or high impact and also with very high probability. And we have some minor risk with low probability and low impact. So that one of most important rules regarding for the risk specialist to make risk assessment for all identified risks to determine which is more critical risks and significant risk which have a high probability with high impact, in order to try as much as we can to avoid those type of, and which type of risk or which category of risk which we have to accept this risk, and don't be afraid about that, and don't invest money to mitigate those risks, because these are very low already and the probability very low. So that this is one of the main functions for the risk specialist. Unfortunately, because the time is very tight, I cannot go in details for each risk process and explain the tools, techniques, and what is the best practice and so on. But let me share with you the concept for the whole risk management processes. Now I am presenting for you the three most very famous risk management frameworks. One of them regarding, of course, PMI, Project Management Institution, and PMBOK Chapter 11, Risk Management, which in the middle, American School, as we can say, and the British School, which IRM, Institute of Risk Management, who are awarded me the award of Best Risk Management Implementation for year 2021 for all public sector, alhamdulillah, in Saudi Arabia and Bahrain. And third one, of course, which may be the most famous, is the ISO 31000 risk management. So that I can summarize all those frameworks and the 100 frameworks which are in the researches and technical paper and so on by 3 steps of the risk management. The main 3 steps for risk management is like this: risk identification, risk analysis, and risk response. American people saying risk response, European people saying risk treatment, but the same. And also there is some people saying risk assessment, some people say risk analysis, also the same. So that we have main 3 steps: risk identification, risk analysis, and risk response. And all these processes will be like you broken down one step to multi-process, or you add some helper processes to service these 3 processes. So that, for example, regarding to PMI, we have 7 processes. But if we go in details regarding to this 3 processes, we will find the core is risk identification, risk analysis, risk response. They take risk analysis and broken down to 2 types for analysis, which qualitative analysis, quantitative analysis. And they go for the 3rd steps, which risk response, and broken down to 2 processes, which implement response, plan risk response. Second one, implement risk response. And they provide 2 general processes which servicing any framework of management, like quality, like cost, like safety, anything, which number process is plan risk management, to produce the risk management plan, and last process which monitor the risk, which is mandatory for any management. So if you would like to mention the 7 processes of PMI, we will say plan risk management, risk identification, qualitative analysis, quantitative analysis, plan risk response, implement risk response, then risk monitoring. Also, if you have a quick look for ISO 31000, you will find risk identification, risk analysis, evaluation, some another terminologies, but the same meeting. Also, he's saying risk treatment instead of risk response. So that we can summarize all the work of risk management by those 3 steps. But before we leave this slide, I can tell you there is a very, very, very important step coming before the risk identification, which is the first step. During my PhD research, I may be reviewed and read several hundreds for the researches and references in the risk management. In all of them, saying the most important process in all risk management processes is risk identification. Theoretically is okay, but from my point of view and based on my experience, the most important one is the established context. And even the wording in English or Arabic, it's not very clear. Yani, when we say risk identification, all people will understand what's the meaning of risk identification. But when we will say establish the context, it's something strange. And also the Arabic translation, something strange, maybe in India and Urdu, in any language, it will be the same. Yani, what we will do in this? Actually, what we will do in established context is it's look like preparation all infrastructure for this tower of the 3 risk management steps for risk identification and assessment and treatment. What is meaning also? It is meaning, for example, before we start to make risk identification, we have to analyze the business environment, internal business environment and external business environment. We have to analyze all stakeholders, which internal stakeholders and also external stakeholders. We have to determine and identify all SMART objectives, which is specific, measurable, and so on regarding to our project. If you did this very well, in this case, you can start risk and identification with a very appropriate way and very effective way. Okay, so that in first step, of course, which will be based on appropriate established context, you have a very long list of risks. And during the workshops, I all time advise people to invest more time. We can stay here. I advise the people to invest their time during brainstorming and so on to identify as maximum as we can for risks. Even they consider this is a very low risk or medium risk or something, no problem. And one of my sentences in the introduction, all ideas are available, all our ideas are acceptable. We cannot make any blaming for anyone. And we make open discussion. Of course, we concentrated only on our scope of work, and we not discuss in anything else. But as a technical way, we will not say, no, it will not come, it will not happen, or something like that. To make the people free to write as much as they can, or to identify as much as they can for all risks. So that this is the first step, to get out with a long list of risks. Second step, which is very important regarding to analysis, and the very famous approach for analysis, which, or the very famous process or implemented process, which qualitative analysis, which is something is very subjective. Like we assess the risk regarding to probability and the impact by, for example, 5-point of scale or 3-point of scale, very low, low, moderate, high, very high, as a probability, and also as an impact, and the multiplication PI equal the risk score. Why we doing this? We doing this, we can say qualitative analysis or descriptive analysis, which not depend on absolute numbers or something like that, just to ordering and classifying the risk. Which group of risk is high risk and which group of the risk is moderate risk and which group of the risk is low risk. Low risk, we will not ignore the low risk, but we put it in watch list, like put our eyes time by time if probability increase, impact increase. And believe me, in many projects, sum of risk was very, very low in certain time, and it is becoming maybe number one of the risk in the middle of the project, which of course based on changes the conditions, economical conditions, and so on. So that based on our classification as a high risk, moderate risk, and low risk, we start to thinking in the treatment action. Of course, the high priority to treat the risk, it will be the high, the group of high risk. But when you're thinking and planning for risk management, please concentrate or remember this concept, ALARP. What's this? This concept will help you to determine the appropriate and the most effective economical treatment action for the risk. But what's the meaning of this concept? It is very easy. I can give you one example. If you have potential event, which a risk that you have material in warehouse and there is risk to be stolen, for example, so that we calculate the probability, maybe 80%, and the material price is 100,000. So that the price of this risk is equal to 80,000 because 80% multiply 100, so that it is 80,000. We can implement one treatment action, maybe costing us 10,000, and that will decrease the probability of that risk. Instead of 80%, it will be, for example, 10%. So that now the price of this risk is equal 10 multiply 100, it equal 10% multiply 100, it equal 10. And I will pay at 10,000 for this treatment action, so that I decrease the price of the risk from 80,000 to be 10,000. I make decrease around 70,000. By how much I pay? I pay only 10,000. So that economical wise, it is okay. I have to implement this treatment action. Like another leader will say, so that you will accept this level of risk residual, or you would like to decrease, so that we will think in additional treatment action. For example, if it is can decrease the 10% to 5%, so that it's meaning it is decreasing the price of the risk from 10 to be 5, yani saving 5,000. What about if the price of this treatment action, it is 50,000? So that in order to decrease 5, I will pay 50. In this case, no. So that we can say this is the acceptable level which we can accept. And we using this carrot diagram, which is very famous. And I think also the HSE people very familiar with this carrot diagram, which is saying we, based on the qualitative analysis, we classify the risk for 3 regions: unacceptable region, and tolerated region, and acceptable region. So that's acceptable, which meaning the multiplication of a probability and impact is low or very low, so that you can accept this. You don't like to pay money to minimize something already very low or minor. Tolerable zone, it is you can select some of them to trade based on the cost and so on. But the unacceptable region, that which we have to trade. But when we trade, we have to thinking in the economic way. Of course, what I mentioned now, it is implemented for a business impact, but in case of it is affected health of people or something like that, no, we have to pay as much as we can, or to do what we can do to protect the people. I would like to not take a lot of time to open the door for any questions and discussion. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Nael, for your very detailed explanation about this risk management tool. So we would open the hall for the Q&A right now. So if you have questions, you can unmute yourself or type in our chat box. And Dr. Nael is willing to answer your questions. Okay, I think. So anybody? I think everybody understand. Okay, so
Good evening.
yes, go ahead, please.
This is Ismail. Thank you so much, Dr. Nael, for this important session. Could you please explain the risk response strategies? I mean, what are the main risk response strategies we can use?
Yes, thank you very much for this question. The main strategies of the risk response, we have risk avoid, or some references saying risk eliminate, for which you avoid the risk from the source. And this is for the very huge risk, like you have risk and you cannot treat this, or you cannot mitigate this, or the impact is very high for you, so that in this case you would like to avoid the risk. Another strategy which mainly implemented regarding to risk mitigation. What is the meaning of risk mitigation? That we try to mitigate the probability, decrease the probability, and or decrease the impact. So that in this case, we decrease the level of the risk, maybe from level of 25 to be 4 or something like that, to be acceptable level. Third strategy, which regarding to risk transfer, when and the very famous example for that, of course, is the insurance. When you make insurance policy for your assets and so on, so that you locally transfer the consequences of the risk for the insurance company. And number 4 is acceptance risk. And acceptance risk is 2 types. The first type is active acceptance. Another one is passive acceptance. What's the difference? Active acceptance, which meaning I will not do anything for that risk till it is occurred. But in case of it is occurred, I have fallback plan, so that I have plan B. In case of this materialized to issue, I will implement directly this plan B. But the passive acceptance, which I will accept and I will never prepare anything, so that in case of that risk materialized to issue, I will work around, based on the situation. I will do as best as we can. Regarding to, or relevant to PMBOK latest edition, they add another one risk response strategy, which called escalate the risk. But really, I believe it is not real strategy to respond to the risk, because just you escalate from layer to layer, but you didn't treat the risk.
Okay, thank you. So we have some questions in the chat box. So from Badr, do you use any software to analysis risk?
Yes, of course. As we said, we have 2 types of risk analysis. There is qualitative risk analysis and there is quantitative risk analysis. Qualitative risk analysis, it is very easy and very simple. It is just a multiplication between probability and the impact. So that Excel, it is very fine for that. And regarding to risk registers and so on, really we rely on Excel spreadsheets and so on. But regarding to quantitative analysis, it is need to develop risk model, which called risk modeling, like QSRA and QCRA, quantitative schedule risk analysis, and quantitative cost risk analysis. Me as myself, when I doing exercise for QSRA, quantitative schedule risk analysis, I prefer to use Primavera risk analysis, which produced by Oracle, so that it is can understand the logics between activities itself and so on, so that we can develop a reasonable model by Primavera risk analysis. In case of I will make QCRA, quantitative cost risk analysis, in this case, we can use at risk, which is very simple tool, and it's lookalike ads inside the Excel program. But at risk cannot understand the logic relation between the activities like start to start, finish to finish, legs, and so on, so that it is applicable only for cost, because cost is item plus item plus item, so that it's straightforward.
Okay, thank you. So there's one more question.
Yes,
Is the
please.
enterprise risk management covered under the same framework?
It is localized the same concept, but for enterprise, which mainly I concentrate in this discussion, it's regarding to PRM, project risk management. But what about ARM, enterprise risk management? They using COSO. COSO framework, they can of course use the ISO 31000. It is very valid for PRM and ARM. And if we get talking a little bit about ARM, it is regarding to the objectives and divisions of the company, so that they will thinking regarding to the objectives of the company. And there is a 4 steps, very, very important for any enterprise to working in. The first layer of the risk, which regarding to compliance, because you cannot work as a company and you against one law, implemented law. Of course, next day they will close your company. So that number one, they looking for any risk that against the compliance with implemented laws and so on. Second one is regarding to hazard, which any risk that affects asset or people, because also in case of a big risk regarding to this, they expose their company for maybe also closing and so on. Third one regarding to control risk, which the uncertainties, the normal risk, inflation, shortage of material, and so on. Fourth layer is regarding to opportunity, how they can, as an enterprise, they get some opportunities to be increase the profit, improve the image, and so on. And they using for that a score sheet called FIRM, which finance, infrastructure, marketplace, FIRM, reputation.
Okay, thank you very much. So before we end our technical webinar, let me present our certificate of appreciation
Thank
to
you very much.
our guests of honor. So in behalf of AACE Arabian Gulf Section, present their certificate of appreciation to Dr. Nael Zabel, Senior Risk Manager, Development and Construction, and for being a speaker of AACE Arabian Gulf Section virtual technical webinar, Managing Risk and Challenges in Mega Projects. So given this 13 November, 7 p.m. Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, signed by Ghassan Dusari, AACE President. So thank you very much, Dr. Zabel, for your time and for your presentation. So to all our guests and attendees, thank you very much, and hope to see you soon in our future technical webinar. Thank you.
Thank you very much.